Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of our show, bringing another really awesome guest today involved in science and technology, ushering a better tomorrow for all of us. Today, we have the honor of being joined on the show by Dr. Anastasia Liapis, who is the Global Head of Innovation and New Business Creation at HP Health Solutions. This is a division of HP Hewlett Packard that develops technology specifically for the healthcare industry, and as they say, reimagines healthcare tech to ultimately put doctors, clinicians, and patients at the forefront of care. Dr. Liapis' team leads innovation in both diagnostics and health tech. They drive the development and commercialization of really interesting ultrafast PCR technology, as well as microfluidic-based diagnostic platforms. And they're also focused on a variety of early stage technology development in partnerships with other companies, looking for breakthrough innovations to ultimately help translate into real world impact. Previous to this role, Dr. Liapis served as Vice President of Strategic Marketing and Partnerships with GNA Biosolutions. This was a molecular diagnostic startup that was ultimately acquired by HP, playing a really pivotal role there in enhancing that organization's strategic vision as they were developing. And before the role of GNA Biosolutions, Dr. Liapis made a lot of contribution to various organizations, including TBWA, the Healthcare Agency Creative Collective. They are serving as a Group Account Supervisor and as Vice President of Medical Affairs and Medical Dynamics, developing various interesting medical education programs. Dr. Liapis completed her doctoral training in genetics at Mount Sinai School of Biomedical Sciences, went on to do a postdoc fellowship in immunology at Scribble Institute of Molecular Medicine at NYU Langone. And she did her undergraduate and master's work in biology at Washington University in St. Louis. A lot of really cool topics to get into today. Really looking forward to the discussion. Dr. Anastasia Liapis, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ira. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great having you. Really looking forward to everything we're going to be getting into today. Would love to start off at the beginning. I love taking a walk through our guests' history before they got to where they are now. And I think
Sure.
a really interesting place to start off would be sort of around your doctoral work. I saw at the time, focused on liposomal storage disorders, a really interesting class of something like 70 genetic disorders involving lipid disposition and transport. How did that one fall on your desk as the topic of your dissertation?
It's a great question. I had grown up in a family of scientists. So my mom was a pathologist and my dad was a chemical engineer, both professors. And so it kind of made sense that they, raised someone that turned out to be a biologist, and somewhere in the middle. I got interested in genetics at some point, I think during my undergrad studies, right? Like and you have to remember and I'm gonna of course date myself now, but when I was right around the time when I was starting grad school, the human genome was getting sequenced. Like, this was an incredibly exciting time for genetics and for biology and biological sciences, because we were for the first time, getting access to all this incredible information and data about our genome. So it was in a way, a very hot topic that I got into. and so I was interested in genetics, and then Mount Sinai had this amazing um, genetics program, and my advisor, um, uh, Yanis Ioannou at Mount Sinai, had very recently found the cure for Fabry disease. So it was all very exciting, right? Like, it was like, wow, this is so powerful. Like, you can have such a huge impact, in people's lives, like through harnessing the power of genetics and genomics, and like really taking that to the clinic, right? So that was the appeal. That's how I was very much interested in having an impact. I wanted to, like, I think a lot of grad students, you want to like cure cancer, save the world, all that stuff, all that great stuff, right? So that's how I got there.
Cool. Cool. And speaking of curing cancer, you finish your dissertation, you go to a postdoc at NYU Langone, and here, CAR T, very hot
Yeah,
topics still. I'm
yeah,
here in Philly, and right down the street from all things happening over there at Penn, but
yeah,
obviously a hot team. You do a really interesting, aside from you're publishing on the way the cells antigens are presented and cytoskeletal
yeah,
dynamics. And one really cool one that popped up was this mechanobiology paper where you're
yes.
like, hey, if we put these cells in a certain grid and a certain structure, we make a lot more of them, which is very important, of course. Tell us a little bit
Yeah, I
about your
can tell
CAR-T
you a little
time.
bit. I mean, I can also connect some of the dots between the genetics and the immunology. I mean, one interesting thing that happened, I think, in my lifetime and in my educational lifetime is, cancer kind of, when I started grad school, cancer was a genetic disease. By the time I finished grad school, cancer was a failure of the immune system, right? So it was a great shift in the fields of study. That's one thing. The other thing is, even though I was a geneticist, like in terms of the department that I was in terms of the work that I was doing, I was very much a cell biologist. And I studied the endosomal system in great detail because of all, and lysosomal system because of all the work that we did in lysosomal storage disorders in the Department of Genetics at Mount Sinai. And as it turns out, like, that same system is incredibly important also for T cell responses. And, there's this incredible thing called the immunological synapse that was a core central focus of study of my postdoc advisor, Mike Dustin. And as it turns out, like, the T cell has to reorient all its vesicles to a particular spot to like affect these responses. So it sounded like not random, but like a big leap. But in terms of the fundamental mechanics of the cells, like, there was a lot of overlap, like, in a lot of things that I could bring into the study of T cells, which was really helpful, and which in a way I think exemplifies something that I've done throughout my career, which is like, take whatever I was doing in the last job, kind of like now bring it into a new setting. It was a big leap, of course, to go from genetics to immunology. Like, I think, and if there's immunologists out there listening, like, I didn't even know what OKT3 was, like, when I joined the lab, right? So I had to learn a lot. I think I
Mhm.
spent a year, like, just learning how to speak immunology, and it was really. And another, I think, important point is, I was very, very fortunate to come across people and mentors who were willing to give me the time to, like, learn that language. And the jump from genetics to immunology, through Mike Dustin, is one example, but he's one of the people, not the last one, to kind of give me a chance to do something new. um, you know, but bringing in something from my experience in the previous role. Yeah.
And so we've gone from genetics to immunology, and then your
Right.
next step is to become a creative,
Yeah.
and you get involved in
Right.
branding and scientific writing and
Right.
everything from autoimmune, respiratory, biosimilars, infectious
Yeah.
disease diagnostics. Why? I mean, it sounds cool. I
Yeah.
mean,
What happened?
it's cool to me. But it's just why.
Yeah. So, I was living in New York for a long time,
I'll
and
do it.
that'll do it. And it's New York is a very exciting and interesting place. There's just a lot of different worlds that coexist, right, within a very small geographic area. So what happened is, right around the time that I was, a postdoc, there was a lot of interest in New York City around kind of citizen science. There were a lot of science for the public events and just things going on, like stuff around town, and basically just through my network, friends, just friends and friends, I was exposed to some of these events and invited to participate and discovered. So I started doing science for the public type events, right? And discovered in the process that A, I enjoyed it, and B, I was like kind of good at it. And so, and those things go hand in hand. I feel like if you're good at something, you tend to like you tend to like doing it. So it was a bit of a light bulb moment because it was like, oh, okay, cool. Now that here's another way that, I can have an impact in this world besides like doing things in the laboratory. And I think what happened to me, and I don't think it's very rare, but certainly my experience was that after many years in the laboratory, I felt that let's say I long to have a bigger impact with my work, right? And I think it's a little bit of maybe I'm too impatient, maybe it's like a personality thing, right? So, but I had started getting a little antsy, let's say, with laboratory, just benchtop work, um, and so this in combination with like, okay, here's an opportunity to do different, a little bit of this kind of dabbling in science for the public events, and I got an opportunity to through a friend. I was introduced to the global creative director of one of the big branding agencies in New York, Interbrand, right? So Interbrand does this, annual report of like the world's best brands. It's quite a big shop, and they had a dedicated healthcare practice, right? So I again came across an individual this time, our John Fidelino, who was the global creative director there, who gave me a shot, like basically interviewed me to help out with some scientific writing, right? Like I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, let me just check this out, right?
Right.
So and gave me a shot, right? Enjoyed the conversation that we had, and had seen some of the work that I'd done in science communication just for in the public sphere, right? And was like, okay, let's give this person a go, right? So that was my start, pivoting out of a laboratory setting and into more, let's say, to the marketing space overall. Um, and from there, it was really like a series of roles, that I treated very much as learning experiences. Like I like to say that I kind of fashioned my own kind of PhD in marketing through my next few jobs, because it was like branding, and then going from brand, which is very much frameworks and language and idea, all the way to like integrated global marketing campaigns. So I kind of used the next few years to learn about how you go from the idea, in the laboratory, to the product, to a regulated product and a FDA cleared product in pharmaceuticals and diagnostics in the healthcare space. So that was like the next several years of work and education, really, for me. And what it was really marked by is, like I said, these people that I these mentors and that I came across that were really willing to give me a shot, to learn, and of course a desire to learn,
Right.
right?
Right.
So like, curiosity and an openness and willingness to kind of suck a
Right.
little bit until I got better, you know. like all that stuff. So
Sure,
yeah,
sure. Cool. No, no, really cool. No, I appreciate the part of that about the mentors, and at the same time,
yeah,
we're building the little sort of Dr. Anastasia Liapis, structure here, because what happens next is, you bring it all together, and I'm really intrigued.
right,
This GNA Biosolutions. I spent a little time reading about the
yeah,
technology. Not that I understand
yeah,
that much about pulse-controlled amplification, but at the end of the day, just a really cool way. Whether it's hey, what's this weird looking stuff over here, or what's on these
yeah,
bananas, or a lot of stuff, whether it's biosecurity, food safety, medical
yeah,
diagnostics, zap, and we get an idea of what's going on. And I think
yeah.
aside from a cool technology, you showed here that I think you found in 2010. And in a matter of less than a decade or so, this pretty big company, HP, said, "Hey, that's a cool marketable product. We want you." So
Yeah,
the story of not just development, but hey, M&A, and
yeah.
everything in between, just really cool. And I'd love you if you could just walk us through your experiences,
Oh, absolutely.
showing up day one to hey,
Yeah,
okay, hi HP.
yeah. So I the next big leap, let's say after, all this marketing education that I self-fashioned through these different jobs in New York, I made a big leap and I moved to Germany. So I did not move to Germany with a plan. I have to say, I
That's
moved to
cool.
Germany for family reasons, and I did not, I was not yet aware of GNA Biosolutions. Okay, when I got there, um, but I figured out rather quickly because I moved to Munich. I figured out that I wasn't going to be doing agency stuff, and I wasn't interested in being a consultant,
Yeah,
and I wasn't interested in also going straight to working for like my clients, right? I didn't want to work for a global company straight out the gate. So I came across the founders of GNA Biosolutions, which, as you said, was founded in 2010. I came in 2017. So in 2017, the company had already, been through a couple of financing rounds and was just getting to the point where, they were going to need a lot more cash to keep going and to make, to meet their next milestone to, in terms of the technology and product development. So, and as you said, like, I had kind of been doing this work for others, but never as part of I've been an advisor and through these like marketing consultancies and marketing agencies, but I'd never been in house. So again, these lovely my lovely colleagues, were like, okay, we need someone that can speak the language of our targets, right? So and here I was like, coming from the US, huge advantage, right? To working with a European startup because a lot of the investors and a lot of the strategics are US companies. And had the experience of working with big corporations, understood the processes that, are at play for doing all these things. So I mean, I brought that expertise to the table, and I understood the technology, right, because of my science background, so I was able to communicate the value, I think, in a way that was effective. And so within and then I don't know, there's luck. Okay, so because like we were working on a rapid molecular amplification technology. So, like, we all heard about PCR. Like, so we had like a fast thermocycling approach to PCR. That was our innovation.
yep,
And then the pandemic happened, right?
yep,
So, I mean, this is the stuff. I think what I learned, what I saw a lot in the startup world is like, everyone I think thinks that there's some magic to it in some way, but my experience is that there's just luck. There's just things you can't control, right? Like I think our team 5 years earlier or 5 years later would have totally missed the boat, or even
Mhm.
1 year later, right? Like, but we got the timing right, and it wasn't because of it was just, the world, things you can't control,
Sure.
right? So the way you make your own luck, I guess, is in like following opportunities. So of course, as soon as we realized there was a pandemic going on, we just shifted everything. Like everything was COVID. Like, we had been looking at antimicrobial resistance. We've been
Mhm.
looking at other like biosecurity, different types of bugs. But as soon as the COVID thing happened, we were like, okay, that's what we're doing. Like immediately, it was like within days, we just re reconfigured the whole focus of the company to that. So, and it worked out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but very much about timing as well.
No,
Yeah.
it's an important story. It's an important part of the story.
Yeah.
Um, what before we go a little further into what HPL Solutions is all about now, can you, I mean, there's two companies, and one of them is Hewlett Packard Enterprises, and we recently profiled Dr. Artie Garg from that organization, and I know it's sort of like, okay, there's enterprise stuff here and then personal here, but at the end of the day, HP is not just about printers. I mean, I got a HP printer over here, but it's much more than that nowadays. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about sort of what HP is and a little bit of what HP Health Solutions is all about, and then we can go a little further into how, now that you're part of a much larger company, how you're developing the PCA technology
Yeah.
further and things of that nature.
Absolutely. So HP Inc. is the company that we're part of. So HP is the original Palo Alto startup, right?
Mhm.
Like the garage in Palo Alto where HP started is the heart of
Right.
Silicon Valley. It's a legacy technology company that's been around for a long time. It has been huge. It did split between HPE Enterprise and HP Inc. Those are separate companies.
Mm-hmm.
HP Inc. has two core businesses. It's got the print business and the PC business, right?
Right.
So so like all big corporates, like, HP has tried different innovation models, right? When when the HP print business was booming, the model was HP Labs. So HP Labs was a big organization within HP that was focused exclusively on innovation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but as businesses become more mature and the corporation has to start allocating different amounts of resources to innovation, the model has to evolve with it. And so,
Sure.
in the last few years, HP has been exploring different approaches. The most recent configuration is the organization that we are part of, which is the Technology and Innovation Organization, TIO.
Mm-hmm.
So within that group, there are incubation businesses. So we are one of them, right?
Okay.
So that are exploring how to bring core HP technologies and other assets, right? So beyond the technology to new markets, right? How to go beyond print, how to go, beyond the consumer market in electronics. And so our group is focused, as you mentioned up front, on is exclusively focused on healthcare. So
Mm-hmm.
we think about like, how to take all of the tremendous innovations that HP has brought to market through the print business in microfluidics, and how can we use these platforms that we've already invested, billions of dollars in, into new products and into new markets, right? So I think maybe what people may not totally realize is that HP is the world's biggest microfluidics company, right? Like HP has more patents in microfluidics than anyone else, and that's driven by the print business, because a printer is effectively a very sophisticated fluidic device, right? Pushes things over. Like, so there's, of course, the core technology is thermal inkjet, and HP is not the only company that's got that going, but it is the company that has the biggest reach in terms of commercial reach, and also has, spent made a lot of investment in not only the development of the technology, but also on the manufacturing and scale up of these things, right? So in order to achieve these low cost printing devices that we all enjoyed in our homes, there's a lot of investment that goes in behind that to be able to scale up in an effective way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we focus on taking those technologies and applying them and connecting the dots between applications that are valuable in vitro diagnostics and cell therapies and other things like that, and connecting them back to the mothership, as it were, technologically. Now, with our technology, that the PCA technology coming into HP, what it added to the mix was, goes one step further than microfluidics, because microfluidics is an enabling technology, right? Like, you're not analyzing anything per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you are automating workflows, you're making things potentially faster, more efficient, integrating into cartridges, things like that. With our approach, what we got was one step beyond, fluidic movement into, analysis of nucleic acids.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a whole, it's basically, if you're thinking about innovation like if you have a platform, as HP does, right? Like you have a microfluidic platform, and you think about, how do I, add functionality to my platform, right? So there's you think about how to bring compatible, let's say, extensions onto your platform to get new capabilities for the platform, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Sure, absolutely. And again, and if I touch on things that are in the works or confidential, just say I'm not going to talk about that. But
Sure.
clearly, as you were mentioning, all right, COVID happened, fine. That obviously a
Sure.
major use case there, but a lot of other infectious disease problems. I mean, I talk a lot on the show about what you were just mentioning, antimicrobial resistance. I think we got a big problem headed our way,
Yes.
Especially with all the the zero antibiotics that we're developing nowadays.
Right.
Talk about, I guess, your thoughts on where you would like to take all this in terms of infectious disease diagnostics, but clearly based on your background of cancer and understanding genetic mutations and cells in genetic disorders, in terms of analyzing who's got what variants. I mean, clearly everything that you've studied in the past and been involved in, there's applications for this rapid diagnostic capability. Take us down that path of what you want to see, where you're going, and obviously don't touch on anything still in the works.
Yeah, no problem. So I think, one thing to say about kind of how we think about things at HP Health Solutions is, we are not the commercial arm of any potential product, right? So we're very much interested in partnerships, and we are more focused on the technology and manufacturing, let's say, side of things, right? Having said that, where we see a lot of opportunity, right, for the technologies that we are incubating is, as you say, in rapid near patient diagnostics for any infectious disease, really, right? But especially things that might, be pandemic, with pandemic potential, or, that are where patients like don't come back to the doctor to get their prescriptions. So that kind of thing. In terms of cancer screenings, I think, there's a lot of discussion, I think, in this space about point of care testing, right? Like, what's the value of point of care testing, and like, do you really need point of care testing for cancer? Because, like, it's not, there's no time pressure, let's say. but to get that, it's not the same urgency that you have with an infectious disease where like someone needs an answer before they leave the office, right? Now, what we are seeing though is that, there is automation is happening all over, right? So across the board. And so microfluidics is enabling for automation, and that isn't just about like getting a quicker answer to the patient because they need it before they leave the office. It's about like not having to have as many specialized personnel and being able to deploy in a decentralized way and having, the same quality, let's say, of testing happen for more people that through distributed devices, right? So I do see potential for cancer screening, even with rapid molecular, and in the sense that I see it as a way to distribute, to have more access, better access, let's say, for these types of tests, because you don't always have the extremely specialized personnel that you need to run some of these very complex tests. So I see a lot of potential there. I also see a lot of potential for as you get more of these CAR T cell therapies, right, in development. One of the bottlenecks is, manufacturing these things is not trivial. Like anytime you've got a cell that you need to grow and like, get to a certain point and put back in the patient, it's just a very specialized form of biomanufacturing with CAR T cells. And I think there's opportunity for QC and for other, like other approaches that you need in order to generate these very, very specialized therapies. Automated AST, also a big opportunity, I think, back to what you're saying about antimicrobial susceptibility. Right now, it's not super accessible. And I think this is if people want to walk away with, some kind of a takeaway, I think it's, what a company like HP can bring to a new space, right? Like healthcare and diagnostics is what it did for printing. Like if you think, what was going on with printing before companies like HP is like you had to go, the big printer, like, all these things that people didn't have printers at home. So I think this idea of distributing devices and like is really empowering, right? Like you can really deliver powerful diagnostics and analysis to a lot more people than we do now. So I think there's something really very powerful about that,
And along those lines, and again, if I'm touching on anything top secret, don't worry. But
Sure.
as we talk, HPE enterprise stuff, then HP personal. Your thoughts on just, hey, clearly you made printers and other things a lot smaller, a lot more. I mean, my printer over here is pretty tiny and it does a great job compared to the big one I used to use, 30 years ago.
And that's our focus. I mean, our focus is integrating and making smaller, faster, cheaper. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Your thoughts on a hot topic for us has been, home health in the home, aging in place, keeping people, from having to go to the doctor.
Absolutely.
General thoughts on that landscape.
So many thoughts. Well, so HP is, we're a hardware company, right? So I think, we think a lot about health in the home, I think in terms of digital health, but there's a lot of progress, but I think there's some areas, there's limitations as well, right? Like there's the reimbursement landscape is a little, I think, difficult. The companies the startups that we saw like really take off with home devices actually collapsed, It's like, I don't know if you remember, Q Health is a notable example, right? They are no more. And I think the reason it's not a soundbite reason. It's not a one sentence answer, but I do think like it's incredibly difficult to get these technologies to market. It's very expensive and no one can survive on like a single test, right? Like I remember when we were fundraising at GNA Biosolutions, we would always come across VCs that would ask me for like a killer application. And unless you're having a pandemic, like there is no killer application. Okay. Like you need a menu. Like,
Mm.
so there's no such thing as like, we're going to have one test and that's going to solve all the problems. Right. So how that impacts home testing is like there's such a high barrier of entry, right, to clear a system. And then you need to keep launching tests to keep the company going. And so the overall what's happening is the innovation model is similar to pharma. It's like biotechs, discover and pharma companies scale. And so, I think but the issue is that, like, similarly to pharma companies, diagnostics companies are not consumer tech companies. So, I think the future, quite honestly, is collaborative, right? The future is partnerships. The future is not we all try to do we're not going to all be able to do everything. And so I think from my perspective, the most impactful way to solve problems in healthcare right now is to lean into your strengths and to partner.
Right.
Because not everybody can do everything. So how do you go to the home? You have somebody on the partnership that knows about consumer tech, right? And you have a partner that really knows FDA approvals, right? Like, because you're not gonna. It's hard to do it all. It's hard to do it all.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Understand. And on that note, I mean, obviously you're not a VC, but you clearly see quite a few, I guess, early stage companies and other innovators. Looking out over the horizon, what are the things that just get you excited? I mean, obviously AI is hot today. I don't
Yeah.
know where we're heading on different fronts, but a lot of AI going on. We've done
Yeah.
some shows on digital twins,
Yeah.
we dabbled a little bit in quantum computing for drug discovery. I mean, what just gets you? I mean, even if there's an HP issue or not,
I'll tell
what gets
you.
you excited looking out over the
Yeah.
horizon?
I mean, and this is, yeah, and of course we're also exploring things in this direction. I think, like, you and I are having a conversation right now on this very powerful device called a PC, and we sit in front of these things for many, many hours every day and to do our work. Um, I think there's a lot of excitement around digital diagnostics and therapeutics, and there's been a lot of focus on the phone as
Yeah.
the hardware. But I personally think it's very exciting to think about, also your PC or other devices in the home as the hardware that's doing the monitoring and the analysis and the let's say
Sure.
diagnosis eventually of different things. I think we've got a lot of technology at our fingertips, and now it's just a matter, as I said, of, like, partnering and putting these things together. So I'm excited about companies like, Click Therapeutics is a great example. They just
Sure.
received FDA approval. That they were the first to receive FDA approval, I think, for software as a therapeutic for depression.
Yep.
I think they got another clearance recently for migraine. Super exciting. I
Yeah.
mean, I think these are really, really interesting approaches that we're just starting to understand, and I think there could be an amazing synergy between that and, like, in combination to pharmaceutical approaches and in combination to early diagnostic, interventions. So I think, again, like, I'd love to see more collaborations and partnerships, like, for end to end kind of, right, for these healthcare problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have to ask Anastasia, just because obviously the genesis of HP, but and I guess this also feedbacks to your CAR T work in a way, but we've done a few shows on sort of this area of bioprinting, and
Okay.
3D printing has been
Yeah.
kind of hot.
Super
Is
cool.
obviously, you worked on sort of what happens in 3D when you went for CAR T
Yes.
expansion, all that, but Your thoughts, your general thoughts on the whole area of 3D printing, using these microfluidic technologies, in concert, whether
Yeah.
it's with cells or other bioproducts to make interesting things. And again, if I'm talking in areas that you're not allowed to go, that's cool. But I'd love to have your thoughts on it while we
No,
have
no
you.
problem. We can always talk. So, um, obviously, HP has a one of the incubations that, in addition to our group, is 3D, right? So, 3D is the biggest incubation that HP has,
Right.
and has spent a lot of time thinking about like how to print different materials. I think bioprinting is tremendously interesting and has a lot of potential. Um, I think especially in the spaces of, organ printing, like skin, I think is super, super, super interesting, like skin grafts and 3D print, that type of thing, right? Like burn victims, like help those types of things,
Right.
like printing, cells for skin replacement, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Super, super interesting. I think, it's difficult to go into these spaces uh, without the application knowledge,
Sure.
right? And so I think it's going to be an interesting future, because in the past, up until now, the US government has been a tremendous force for
Mm,
support of these types of innovations. In fact, I mean, I think the United States government is the biggest investor in diagnostics of the last 30, 40 years, right?
right.
And many, if not all, of our point of care innovations have been funded by the U.S. government. So with I don't know what the future holds, right? I think that we need to think the industry may need to rethink the models, right, for
Right.
how we get these things done. I think it's possible. I would hope to see, let's say, big companies take an initiative to collaborate and to encourage innovation, right? Because we all rely on it to remain competitive and to continue growing our businesses, right? And so I think we might need to rethink the structures by which we nurture innovation. Similarly, like, to this TIO organization that we're part of, but maybe, one layer beyond that, like, having multiple, let's say, technology incubators kind of come together. I think that would be a really powerful and exciting model, another model for innovation that we could consider that goes beyond, let's say, federal funds, because it feels like the world is uncertain in that way
Oh yeah.
at the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. It's it's interesting times. I'll
Lots of
leave it at
uncertainty.
yeah.
Yeah, lots of
Uh,
uncertainty.
I'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's yeah, I don't know what's going to be happening, but you bring up some extremely important thinking points there. But I say what else is coming up that we should know about either for HPL Solutions, you in terms of conferences and talks and other initiatives that are public facing that we should know about while we have you today, or anything else that I missed while we have you today that you'd love to talk about, please.
Sure. Well, I think what exciting for us is HP recently acquired Humane, is
Okay.
an a uh, an AI company that was developing some hardware for monitoring that, right now there's, a lot of discussion about kind of what the future of that is going to look like, right?
Okay.
So I think like the AI, how hardware and AI are going to, create new possibilities. I think that's an exciting space, because I think that in the AI, let's say, discussion, I think we have a lot of focus on the software itself, but
Mm-hmm.
how it's like, how are we delivering these things? Like, how is this and what is it helping, and like what is it actually doing? I think that interface is really important, sort of
Yep.
like the hardware AI interface and what that enables for the way we work and the way we deliver healthcare and the way we learn. I think those are really exciting areas, and areas where I think we're going to see surprisingly like overlap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what I was referring to before with like using the PC as maybe as a medical device,
Right.
like that kind of thing. So I think those are the things I'm excited about, right? Like the kind of interfaces between the hardware world and the software world, and what that enables us to do in our day-to-day lives and our work lives and in healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's like a wearable, whether that's, like I said, your PC as a monitoring device, or other things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. Not just the wearables, but just in general the whole health at home thing. And
Yeah.
we profiled everything from the smart toilet to smart clothing and and everything in between. So yeah, how AI is going to play a role in all this hardware and tell us everything that's wrong and how we can fix it
I
potentially.
One
Please.
thing that I think may happen, Ira, is, kind of a detour through wellness, right?
Mhm.
So, or not detour, like a step toward like this healthcare at home through a wellness path, because the IVD and medtech path, it like has a relatively high regulatory burden, right?
Right.
And as we learn more about what works and what doesn't in a home healthcare setting, I think, wellness, like the wellness space, is an interesting kind of first step, right,
Yeah.
to getting there. So I'm looking at that space with a lot of interest, in all the startups in that space with a lot of interest. There's a lot of cool applications and ideas out there.
Yeah.
Conferences, we will be at Tech Tour Growth Health in Lausanne,
Okay.
July 2nd through 4th. And yeah, I think like that's a good one.
Okay.
That's the next one that we will be at.
I'll put a link to that in the bio.
Yeah. Tech Tour is a great European accelerator. They do a lot of great startup events. It's a great resource. MedTech Innovator is also a great organization in the US, kind of a counterpart to Tech Tour. They um, give they give away non-dilutive funding, and they really support startups in medtech. They've recently launched a life science tools group as well, which is very
Mhm.
interesting. So for young companies that are, getting into the space and trying to raise funding and getting, trying to figure out how to scale, like these are all really good resources, good
Excellent.
organizations to be aware of.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, it's an exciting time, and I again I enjoyed not just walking through your your story, but hearing about again the integration. I think the hot term is convergence nowadays between the biosciences and the tech space, and yeah, I look forward to continue to follow you and the company and all the exciting non-traditional things that you're doing that we don't normally think of a large organization like HP involved in, but a really interesting story. And I just really appreciate you, Anastasia, sharing with us and again, wishing you and the team the best with it all as you continue to grow the business unit. Again, for everybody out there that's going to be listening to this episode across the various podcast networks or watching on the YouTube channel. Again, you spending time with Dr. Anastasia Liapis, Global Head of Innovation and New Business Creation HP Health Solutions, as they say, reimagining healthcare tech to put doctors, clinicians, and patients first. Anastasia, again, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us for a little while. Honestly, thank you for everything you're up to in advancing science and technology. As we like to say on our show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow for patients via what you're doing. Really a great story.
Thank you so much for having me, Ira. It's been a pleasure.
Really great having you today.